Here is another problem you could run into as a carpenter or do-it-yourselfer. And I actually ran into it quite a few years ago and thought I would share my experience with you. And in my experience, the mason located the footing in the wrong spot. It was over just a little bit and then didn't plumb up the post or vertically level the post. And since it was a project that I was doing after work and only had a few hours to do it, I didn't measure both sides of the beams. I only measured one side and assumed the other side was going to be the same, like it is most of the time. And of course, that's what we're looking at here in this first example. All of the ceiling joists are the same, the beams, the roof rafters are all cut the same. And of course, the measurements from here to here and from here to here to where we square up a building should be the same also. So this would be a vertically plumb building where all four sides are level, plumb, and square. Unlike this situation here to where the footing is located a little bit further off, even though it might be plumb, however, it's still going to create a problem for the roof framing. And I'm going to kind of use these boxes here to give you an idea of what we're looking at as a reference point. I think it's going to really help throughout the project to provide you with the problem area that we're going to be dealing with. And I went ahead and left the ceiling joists like they were. I didn't extend them over. And in this example, I'm going to use the same roof rafters, even though I've extended the length of the ceiling joist, to provide some of you who don't know a lot about roof framing what's actually going on here. And that would be the fact that if we cut all four of these roof rafters the same size, then we could end up with something like this. But more than likely, we're going to end up with something like this. And even though this is an extreme example, I'm using it to make a point, and hopefully you never end up with something like this. I need to point out that any small variances that you have, for example, let's say you put the roof rafters in on this side and all of your joints fit nice and tight, and then you come over to the other side and they are not fitting tight, then that should be your first clue that you might have a problem. And for those of you who did not see the ridge drop here, we have an out of level ridge, and not only is it going to be out of level, it is no longer going to be square with the plywood sheathing. So here we have some nice tight fitting rafters on both sides, providing us with our first clue that everything is working out just fine. However, that is not going to be the case here or at the top or on the other side. And now let's go ahead and pan out and take a look at how the ridge is also going to be pushed over in this direction a little bit. And you can see it better when I go ahead and I put this box back in here. So in this example here, we have a ridge that is no longer level horizontally, and it's going to be pushed over a little bit. That's going to create problems for our roof sheathing, and believe it or not, for our roofing in some cases. And even though our next example is similar, I just wanted to provide you with the most common problem you're going to run into. And that will have something to do with the footings being located in the correct spot. However, one or more of the posts will no longer be plumb or vertically level. And yes, you could end up with a situation where you have a couple of posts that aren't level, especially if you have a level that is not working correctly. Now, I also want to provide you with an example of how the roof will be twisting. And that's because we're using the same rafter lengths. This won't be the same problem if we modify the roof rafters or if we extend the seat cut a little further. And this should make sense to most of you. If we come into the side that isn't plumb or out of square and we just simply extend the length of the seat cut and reduce the length of the overhang on one side, you can see here the overhang is going to be a little shorter than the one on this side. However, the ridge is going to be level and all of the sheathing is going to be square, providing us with one way to solve this problem. So again, the seat cut on this side will be nice and tight, and we're going to need to make the others a little bit longer. As you can see in this picture here, and again, this should make sense because we're just simply extending the length of the seat cut to compensate for the beam that is not properly positioned. However, it will be up to you to figure out whether or not this is going to be acceptable or whether you want to use the next example in the video, where we are going to change the length of the roof rafters to match the width of the building. So if we have a 4 12 pitch, we're going to use the overall span of the building on this side to cut the roof rafters for a 4 12 pitch, and then we're going to do the same on this side. And I went ahead and I left these rafters all the same. So this rafter, this one, and then these are all the same. However, these two are different, to provide you with an example of how we're still going to be pushing the ridge over. And then we're going to need to extend the length of these rafters on this side. And in this example here, each side of the roof will not be twisted. It will be on a flat plane and provide us with the same size overhang throughout the building. And this is actually how I fixed the project I was working on, and would imagine that it's going to be the same one used by most carpenters. And even though I have a level ridge here, I haven't raised it in the example, you can see that it's going to need to be raised a little bit. And if your building is only off about an inch, this might not be a problem. And it might be something that the roofer's not going to have a problem with, because again, it's not going to be off much. And in the last part of the video, I want to take a couple of pieces of roof sheathing, and obviously they're large pieces of roof sheathing, but they are going to be level, they are going to be square, and they are going to provide you with an example of just how far off the overhang might be on either one or both sides of the building. As you can see here, where there are no problems with the roof sheathing and everything is nice and square. The roof sheathing fits tightly on the top of the roof rafters and creates a nice level flat plane. However, that is not going to be the case on this side, and this might not be the same on your building. You could actually have two sections that are just slightly off. However, in my drawing, you can see here where the height is going to be off a little bit and this side of the building is going to be out of square. And that's probably going to have more to do with the fact that this is where the problem is and that we don't have a problem on the other side. So I think the real question here is whether or not you want the overhang to be the same on both sides of the building. And if that's the case, you're going to have to use this method. If not, then you're probably going to have to use the method where you extend the seat cut if you want the ridge to be level and the sheathing to be square. And of course, the best way to avoid this problem in the first place will be to make sure that the building foundation is square and that all of your posts and your walls are plumb or vertically level. So hope that you learned something here. And if you did, you know what to do. Hit the thumbs up button. And for those of you who might have missed one of our popular series, I would recommend clicking on the playlist tab and checking out the playlist where we have taken a two-car garage and added a loft above it, especially if that's something that you're considering doing in the future.